Hello again. We are Chris Lee and Chase Robinson of Southeastern 16 here to preview Akron's trip to Columbia, South Carolina to face the Gamecocks. You can catch this 6:30 Central on ESPNU. South Carolina is a 27-point favorite with an over-under of 46.5. My model has got South Carolina by 30. We will talk about both sides of the matchup, but before we do, a reminder, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino. Get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet online. The game starts here. Let's start when Akron's got the ball. I'll give you some numbers about the Zips. Not a great offensive season for them so far, although, as Chase will point out, they played a tough schedule. They average 66 snaps and 18 points a game, a 3% turnover rate. They throw it 59% of the time. They average 3.8 yards per rush play, 5 even per pass play for a total of 4.5 per snap. South Carolina's defense, which has been one of the talks of the SEC so far, has been terrific. The pass rush has been a talk for them. They're getting turnovers 3.4% of the time. Opponents are passing for 4.6 yards a pass and 4 yards a pass play and 4.6 per running play. This has just been an outstanding defense, and this should be a matchup that leans heavily in the Gamecocks' favor here, given the way South Carolina has really gotten after the quarterback, which is something Akron has had trouble preventing. 9 sacks so far given up by Akron, 12 made by the Gamecocks defense. This seems like a one-sided side of the matchup here, Chase.
It does, yeah, and Akron has played a tough schedule. They've seen some good football. They started the season off against number 2 Ohio State, lost that one 52-6. They played Rutgers, who I think is a pretty good team. They lost that game 49-17. They did win against Colgate this week, 31-20. Colgate being an FCS team, but Ben Finley, their quarterback, has been a bit inconsistent. He's 50 of 88. 549 yards, 5 touchdowns. He does have 3 interceptions and has only completed 56.8% of his passes. And so he's been inconsistent at times. He likes to throw the ball to Bobby Golden and Adrian Norton. Those are his 2 main receivers. They had 100 yards plus apiece against Colgate. But they've also had a hard time running the football at times this year too. But they are led by Jordon Simmons running. He has 167 yards on the year. But I'm interested to see what South Carolina defense is able to do coming off the loss. I think they're going to be ready to prove something in this game and prove they continue to have a good SEC defense. And yeah, this is a little bit of a mismatch on this side of the ball for sure.
Yeah, Carolina giving up 36 to LSU last week, a little misleading in terms of how the defense played. They had 2 touchdowns wiped out by pick sixes, and I know they struggled at times against the run late in the game, and Nussmeier threw for nearly 300, and Dylan Stewart was quiet, held off the stat sheet, unless I'm missing something here. But you had 2 pick sixes wiped out. One was, I think, a legitimate horse collar tackle penalty. The other one was a late block on Garrett Nussmeier. I don't know what you're supposed to do. Apparently you can't block the quarterback anymore. But, it wiped out Nick Emmanwori's pick 6 of like 101 yards. They got all kinds of guys back there that can make plays. I just think this is a playmaking defense where this side of the matchup seems to set up nicely for the Gamecocks in this one. All right, let's turn our attention to the other side of the ball. And Carolina's offense is where we got some questions, Chase. One of which is LaNorris Sellers' availability. I'll let you address that in a minute. Carolina averaging 29 points a game on 66 snaps, turns it over 2.5% of the time, runs it 64% of the time, 4.7 yards per rushing play, 4.8 per passing play. Akron's defense, on the other hand, is giving up 64 snaps a game, a 1.6% turnover rate. Teams run it 54% of the time against them for 5.2 yards per rushing play, 7.0 per pass, 6 total on the whole. I think the big question here, though, is LaNorris Sellers and his availability.
Yeah, with the SEC mandating that coaches put out the injury reports, those go out on Wednesday. We're recording this on Tuesday. I was reading around at what Shane Beamer said in his press conference to start the week, and all he said was LaNorris Sellers is okay, and so we don't know if that means he's okay and is going to start this game or they're going to hold him out. So when the injury reports become available later in the week, we'll know more. But as we're recording this on Tuesday, we don't know what the situation is. Will we see LaNorris Sellers start? Will we see Robby Ashford, the backup, start? At this point, we have no idea.
Yeah, it was a mixed bag for Carolina. When Sellers was in there, I thought they did some great things. He ran it 10 times for 88 yards and 2 scores, did throw a pick, but the passing was a little better. They felt like they gave him some easy throws. It was clear that they did not want to throw with Robby Ashford when Ashford was in the ball game until they had to. Different matchup this week. I think the most encouraging thing, though, Rocket Sanders, 19 carries for $143, had a long run of 66. And yeah, I know that's because somebody fell asleep on one side of the LSU defense, but we saw that burst from Sanders. We saw him have some big runs down the stretch last week or the week before in the game against Kentucky. And I think if you get Rocket Sanders right, and maybe you give Ashford a game for Sellers to sit and heal up, I think there's a plausible path for Carolina to do enough offensively here.
I think so too. The defense again for Akron has struggled a lot this year. They give up a lot of points. They have several pass breakups, which I think is something to note. They're aggressive defensively. Devontae Golden Nelson is one of those guys who's really aggressive defensively. Paul Lewis, Darian Lewis, those guys, they're really physical and aggressive and like to break up passes. But that's really one of the major bright spots defensively for Akron. I just think on this side, there's another mismatch.
Yeah, let's get the picks, and I'll let you go first.
Yeah, South Carolina's coming into this game. Again, it's a mismatch. South Carolina should win this game, and I think they do, and I think they do big. South Carolina's ready to prove something. They're frustrated from last week. That was a game I feel like that they had against LSU, and again, calls went against them. They were frustrating. They couldn't finish. So I feel like South Carolina's coming in a little mad, and I think that's going to help. Yeah. I think it's a big Gamecock win Saturday.
We've pointed to the MAC as being kind of a sleepy good conference with a couple of upsets so far. Akron not part of that group that's going to pull them. Not a good team. It's expected to be at the bottom of the MAC, probably a bottom 10 team nationally. Now, look, you have two things kind of going against you a little bit if you're South Carolina. Maybe the hangover from the way you lost the LSU game, and you got what everybody thinks will be a tune-up matchup with an off week ahead, and then you look forward to Ole Miss. But Shane Beamer's been through this once already, right? There was the Old Dominion game that they nearly lost in the opener. So you have that as a little bit of insurance against a sleepwalking type game. I just think that the sack numbers, what Akron's allowing and what Carolina's getting, they don't really need Robby Ashford or even Sellers to carry them this game. They can kind of play a vanilla game plan. If you get the Sanders you had last week, you can run for big yardage. And Ashford can generate some plays against this kind of defense if he's the guy. So I'm with you. Give me Carolina big. We cover sports year-round in the major three men's sports here, and I do mean year-round. We have off-season basketball and baseball shows every week. Best way to get all that, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and tell a friend. Advertising inquiries, and we do reach millions a year through all of our stuff. Caroline.smith@southeastern14.com. For Chase Robinson, I'm Chris Lee. We are Southeastern 16, presented by Bet Online.